Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deislayers, and in this video, we're going to discuss Forsaken competitive Crucible and the state of it. Just so that you guys can kind of get an idea as to how competitive that really is in this legend rank, I've got some game footage going on in the background with my very good friends Gypsy, Anthony, and Chappelle, and one of the most sweatiest among sweaty McSweat players that you will ever see. And my friends, pay very close attention because getting to that legend rank is going to be exactly like this, and that I can guarantee. The only thing left to do is to sit back and relax, put on some deodorant, and make sure to eviscerate that notification button, and let's jump right into the video. If I had to break up the competitive playlist into one of three categories, it would be number 1, the glory ranking system and going from the lower tiers to the higher tiers and the weapons used as well as the subclasses used in those overall ranks. Number 2 is the playstyle, and that's going to include aggressive versus passive, fluid versus stagnant movement, super availability, and ultimately what wins. Number 3 is critical decision making, and what I mean by this is the map control, the team pushes, the anticipation without hesitation, as that statement right there is probably the most important thing that I have to say, and we're going to get into all this right now. As you all know, the competitive playlist is one of the most sweaty McSweat places that you will ever be, and the reason as to why this is because we're all grinding for 2 weapons, in particular the Luna's Howl, which you get at the Fabled rank, and lastly the Not Forgotten, which you're going to get at the Legend rank. Now the way in which you get to those levels is very different, because in the lower end tiers of Heroic/Fabled, you're going to come into a lot of players that are using a wide variety of subclasses, as well as a wide variety of weapons, and that's because you can kind of get away with some of these different traits, like fusion rifles and potentially snipers, but in the higher end tiers, this is certainly not the case, because as you're seeing throughout this entire game footage, what is everybody using? Number 1, a Luna's Howl hand cannon or a Not Forgotten hand cannon, and then number 2, a shotgun. If you truly want to master the competitive play of this game, you have got to be able to master one unique skill set, and that is shotgunning. As much as I hate to say it, shotgunning is one of the most pivotal things that you have got to be able to comprehend and truly execute, because if you don't do so, then you're just going to get stomped on like a cockroach, and nobody wants that to happen to them. In those lower end tiers, you might be able to get away with a Telesto, but in the higher end tiers, this is definitely not going to be the case, and that's because shotguns are going to have a very high damage output with a fairly large range factor, and on top of this, all the maps in Destiny 2 are designed to encourage shotgun play. The lanes and the close confined spaces are going to allow you to utilize a shotgun more effectively, and this is why you see so many shotguns and why you see less and less fusion rifles, and lastly, sniper rifles are going to be the least used because they take the highest skill set to use, and furthermore, they can't be used in those close confined spaces, which is exactly what every single map requires. Understanding that, you now kind of get a sense as to why mastering a shotgun is so unbelievably important. And this then brings me to my next point, and that is hand cannons, more specifically the Luna's Howl along with the Not Forgotten. In these higher end tiers, that is the only weapon that you're going to see. And that's because not only is it going to give you the highest TTK possible, or potentially to have that anyways, it also is going to do a very high damage output at longer ranges. And so if you want to be able to peek in and out of cover, a hand cannon is the ideal weapon of choice. And to go along with the same concept, hand cannons are ideal for team shotting because you can have 2 or 3 people all doing 57 to possibly 131 points of damage with the Not Forgotten or the Luna's Howl, and when that's the case, team shotting is the most pivotal aspect in this overall competitive scene. Essentially, what I'm trying to stress is that if you want to be able to become competitive in the overall Crucible scene and possibly reach Legend, then what you have to be able to get very good with is number 1, shotguns, and number 2, hand cannons. Now you might be thinking to yourself, alright Xander, well closing the gap is no problem whatsoever, and to you, I say this is actually one of the most difficult skill sets to actually master within Destiny 2, and in particular this competitive scene, because like I said from before, team shotting is so important, and associated with this is map control. In game modes like Clash, Control, and possibly even Survival, all those are going to revolve around one thing, and that's the map control, because map control is then going to dictate as to who has control over the power. Whoever has control over the power has a much higher significant chance of winning that overall round or match, and if this is the case, you guys can clearly understand as to why this is so essential. Knowing that, I want to take one more step backwards and simply state that the next characters that you guys are going to see in this overall competitive scene is Hunters. And that's for one simple reason, because Hunters have the most aerial maneuverability to be utilized with shotguns effectively. In the Mythic and Legend ranks, this is literally all that you're going to see, and you might see the occasional Warlock every now and then, and that's because the Voidwalker subclass has Blink, which is very good for maneuverability aspects, but furthermore, it accompanies shotgunning very effectively. In association with this, another reason as to why you see so many Hunters and Warlocks is because the Hunter Arcstrider as well as the Hunter Blade Barrage are extremely powerful, and they can be used either in an instantaneous scenario or they can be used to block and potentially gain the map control, just like I said from before. As far as the Warlock and the Nova Warp goes, this is the exact same premise as to why you see so many of them, because that super is unbelievably powerful and it can do the exact same thing. Now where things get extremely interesting is when you complement one of those three subclasses that I just mentioned with a very aggressive playstyle. There has been a very long and on-standing argument as to whether or not an aggressive playstyle or a passive playstyle is better. And if you were to ask me, what I have seen throughout my entire comp grind is that an aggressive playstyle is going to outplay a passive one every single time. And that's because the Guardians who are more aggressive are more fluid. Those who are more fluid are not going to be stagnant, and the reason I mention this is because if you're stagnant, you're most likely then going to get pinched for multiple team shots, and thus you're going to get absolutely annihilated almost instantaneously. On top of this, an aggressive playstyle is almost always going to allow you to gain the map control, and you guys already know as to how important that map control is. When you combine this with team pushes, this is when things get unbelievably chaotic and things are going to collapse on you if you happen to have a passive playstyle. And so this is why I say that the ones who have the aggressive playstyle are almost always going to have the overall advantage in every single outcome. Now the only thing I didn't mention here is that supers and the super availability is almost going to be even more pivotal than everything that I've just said. And my logic and reasoning behind this is because the teams that can have the most supers are going to be the ones that can have the potential to have the bigger plays, aka momentum shifts. And the higher end tiers of comp within Mythic and Legend, the teams that can have their supers 3 and potentially even 4 times are almost always going to gain the overall map control and thus be able to control the power. Not only are you going to do this, but you're going to slay at the exact same time. And so you guys can really see that with everything that I've just said, shotguns, super availability, aggressive playstyle, and fluidity, they're all going to work cohesively and have this marvelous symbiotic relationship together. And when you have all these things working in perfect harmony from one Guardian to the next on a solid team, oh my gosh, my friends, the devastation that you are going to incur is going to be the definition of obliteration, annihilation, and eradication in every single game. And going from Heroic to Fabled and then from Mythic to Legend, I can certainly say that my experiences have dictated that everything that I've said within this video is 110% true. And with that, you're going to make the enemy team a little bit salty. Having said all this stuff, I think that you guys now have a very solid understanding as to what the current competitive playlist is like in this Forsaken DLC. Now in this next coming update, things might change and they may not change, but as it stands right now, these are the things that you guys have got to master and have got to comprehend and thoroughly understand, because if you don't do so, then you're never ever going to achieve what you want to in this competitive rank. As you guys have seen from this game footage so far, this has been one of the most sweatiest among Sweaty McSweat matches that I have ever done, and it pertains to everything that I've just said by showing shotgunning gameplay and hand cannon footage, not just by me, but my team as well as the enemy team. Even so, if there was one thing that I really wanted you guys to take away from this, is that everything that I'm doing within this video is having non-stop decision-making processes, and within this, I have anticipation without hesitation. That one statement alone is by all means what you have got to apply to every single scenario and have the mentality that you're going to win, even though in all cases you're not going to. When you tell your brain that you're going to win, your body is then going to associate the winning with that, and your muscles and your nerves are going to respond accordingly, thus giving you the mentality to achieve anticipation without hesitation. With that, Let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comment section below, and whether or not you're enjoying comp or you hate it, you can't get enough of it, or you despise it, as I'm certainly going to read all those comments, and I can't wait to see exactly what you guys gotta say. Lastly, go ahead and check out some of my other new videos, as you guys can see right there on the screen. If you happen to enjoy this one, then you're definitely going to enjoy those as well. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now, and so as always, Deislayers, great gaming, until next time.